Summit, and we have been talking with some of the companies, some of the speakers. It's been a great event so far, and I'm excited to have Sunil Thomas. He is CEO and co-founder of CleverTap. Not just the sponsor, or one of the sponsors here at the show, but a name we're seeing so much of recently. What's going on over there? Because it's been an amazing growth year for you, hasn't it?
It has been. Thank you, first of all, for having me here. Yeah, we've been at it, Peggy, now for 5 years, and it's just been wonderful. And the last year and a half or 2 years, the rate of innovation, what we bring to marketers and product growth teams, has just been really, really phenomenal. I mean, just exciting times to be CleverTap at the moment.
So how would you describe CleverTap? Because it's sort of in a space where you could call yourself actually many things. It's kind of hard to find an adjective. How do you explain CleverTap, the proposition, when you explain the company?
Yeah, it is hard, and we are still learning, and I think we are getting better at it. I don't think we've quite got it. But what it is, it's a combination of a customer data platform that spits out user insights, behavior insights, what people do. It spits out automatic segments, who are your champion users, who are your buyers, who are not, who are at risk, who's going to churn. And then it allows you to sort of engage with them across multiple channels, these users. So it's in a way CDP plus analytics plus user engagement or marketing automation all put together in one tight platform.
And in a way, you're redefining, customer lifecycle management, but it's not necessarily redefining the terms. It's more like redefining how we approach it. How would you explain how you're seeing CLM in more or less what you're doing as a company? Because it's not about saying do this at this stage. It's more like understanding more holistically where that stage fits in with all the other stages, right?
Yes, absolutely. So the stages are the stages, right? I mean, customer lifecycle management stages, people think of it as starts with acquisition, then you retain, then you monetize, then you reward, then you reactivate because people sort of fall off in different parts of their journey as users. And people have those stages for many years now. The thing we've noticed, is that the stages are not actionable as it is. I mean, you might be running reactivation programs, but you don't know whom to target to get the best value for them. You might be running sort of reward and loyalty programs, but you don't know whom to target. Yeah, so it's about for these stages, we bring out the best users to target. So your champion users, we bring it out so that you can run your reward loyalty programs against them. You want to make them feel good so that they remain champions. Your sort of at-risk users or hibernating users based on a traditional recency frequency model is whom you want to run your reactivation programs with. Those are the people who you recommend a piece of content or next best thing to do or get them back into the site with marketers and marketing teams have a lot of creativity once they know who they are working with. So that's the thing. You monetize your loyal customers or your potentially loyal customers because that's where you sort of, maybe in an e-commerce environment, you bundle deals to get a bigger ticket size in the cart and so on.
But it makes perfect sense because up until this point, we've just been saying, okay, everyone who I think is a certain type just gets the same message. So it's even because it's not such a granular way of looking at the segmentation, but recency and frequency says it's not just because they have somehow fulfilled these criteria that they belong in this segment, but then it's more about the behavior and the real-time behavior. Is this all real-time with you?
It is all real-time, and that's actually the fun of it. So like you said, right, segmentation was sort of male, female, gender-based, or maybe even geography-based, very static pieces of things, right? Where there's no differentiation you can really make between reactivation and reward. I mean, that's a big thing to say all women or all men are my segments. So based on behavior, based on recency and frequency, it does two things. One is that as users drop down, meaning from champions go into sort of need attention, go into hibernating, as they drop down the stages, they are getting the right messages for those appropriate stages. But more importantly, even as they grow up the stages, they are being recognized as a champion the moment they become a champion. There's
Otherwise
just a lot of
spam them because come on back. No, I'm already back. Where have you been?
Absolutely. So that's the first thing. It makes it real time, makes it fully fully automated, and it's just in context. That's what the thing with mobile apps, right? I mean, there's so much competition. There's everybody's struggling. There are choices galore.
Yeah.
it's just hard to get your brand on top of the users. And
But
we've
it's
seen
also-
using the model works really well.
I was going to say, but also, it's a great time for a company like yours because app marketers are thinking about this. Thinking about deep funnel, thinking about engagement. They're thinking
Yes.
about, what do I do? Not even just with games, with
Yes.
all non-gaming as well.
Yes.
What do I do with my whales? I don't want to bother them, but I want to get my minnows back up.
Yes.
And that's for all companies. I'm just wondering, from your experience, where do you see that app marketers are currently having the biggest challenges? Do they get their head around this, in your opinion?
I want to say not quite yet, but not
Okay.
because of any disrespect, but because of the fact that,
It's new.
it's new, A,
Okay.
and B, this is a very data science realm. They just don't have access to this sort of real insights in real time. They can ask for data, sort of reactive data, how many people were, did something. But even those come weeks after, right, through an IT or a data science team, if you will. They just
Right.
don't have access to data, and you have this access to sort of real-time context. That just will take their creativity to a whole new high. Because it's one thing to say I want to design a loyalty program, but it's another thing to say I want to design a loyalty program for people who've bought greater than $10,000 worth of stuff from me, or whatever your app is, right?
Right.
Who's viewed 400 hours of video or whatever. So suddenly so it's really about segmentation in our thing, and it's about for a campaign, there are three foundational pieces, right? It's when the campaign goes, it's who the campaign goes to, and what the campaign is, meaning what the content of the campaign is. So the when we are already automating with things like best time to send to the user based on his or her preferences or past history. The who we are, it's the segmentation. So who we are automating by automatically bubbling up your champion users or your most likely to uninstall the app users or whatever. And the sort of the holy final grail, I mean, not the final grail, but another great piece is that we are now working on automating the what. It's in the realm of recommendations or whatever, but if you have a catalog, I mean, Netflix adds 50 movies every month, right? And you almost upload that catalog, but instead of promoting one movie or two movies hard-coded within a campaign, it's nice to say, hey, recommended movies. So Peggy, you and I will get a different movie from that list of 50 in our campaign. But that's based on your history, and my history.
Well,
I'm a sports buff.
I'm excited about recommendation. I'll get to that in a moment.
Nice,
but
nice.
I really am, because I can see it coming.
Nice.
Because we know where we're going. It's so hyper-personal, it makes sense to have personalized recommendations.
Yes.
Or what seems to be that. But I want to step back for just a moment. And let's say that an app marketer is asking himself, herself, I'm seeing the signs, I think I'm seeing the signs of a user going to hibernation or something like that. I mean, I don't want it to be a question of opinion. I'd like to have some fact to base this on. So how
Absolutely.
do you see the signs that someone is lapsing? What
Yeah.
are they concretely?
Yeah. So our most common model is the recency and frequency model, RFM. It's what's known as, we didn't invent the model, we're just making it available to marketers in growth and retention teams. So there are two dimensions to this. There's recency and there's frequency. Recency is about how recently have I seen you, and I have seen you an hour ago, a week ago, a month ago, you as an individual user, right, for that brand or for that app. And obviously, the more, if I talk to you every hour, our conversations are different. But if I talk to you after a year, our conversations are naturally going to be different.
Yeah.
I've got to ask about how things are at home, things like that, as opposed to your best friend where you're talking every day and you don't, those things, right? So that's recency, and that's one dimension. Second dimension is frequency, meaning within a period of the last 6 months or a month or a year, how frequently have I seen you? Have I seen you twice in a year? Have I seen you 8 times in a year, right? And you combine recency and frequency, and you really, for any user action, it could be an app launch, you're just launching the app and you plot your users on a map based on recency and frequency. Or it could be your app purchases, it could be your app viewing time, whatever your user action is most interested, or multiple of them, you plot your users purely based on recency and frequency.
Right.
So, and you normalize the scores, right, into 0 to 5, say.
Okay.
Automatically, people who have a high score, 5 recency and 5 frequency, are your champion users.
Okay.
People who have a 0 score or close to the bottom end, that means you have not seen them recently, have not seen them frequently, are your hibernating users. And the whole, this comes up with 10 segments where champions, go into sort of needs attention, that means the recency is dropping.
Yeah.
Recency further drops and they become sort of at risk. Frequency drops, they become hibernating. So this just is a nice grid of like 10 segments where it's like, it's mutually exclusive. One user is only in one segment at a time. You're either a champion or your needs attention or you're a loyal customer or whatever. And that's what helps market, like that's what helps the whole lifecycle management. So you're managing each user at the stage he or she is. So RFM model is the one we use out of the box within CleverTap. Obviously, it's an open platform, so people can define their own life cycle stages if they are sort of sophisticated enough.
That's also helpful because different apps are going to have different stages.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was talking to someone with a healthcare app, and we were talking about retention. He said, I don't have the normal retention cycle because people are not always sick, thankfully. So if someone isn't checking into my healthcare app, once a month, it's actually fine. So it's not a red flag.
And that's actually a very good point. So the dynamic nature of recency frequency calculations, the fact that we do it in real time with your data is what makes that, it keeps it like that. Meaning, so if you're an airline ticketing app, right, you buy maybe 2 or 3 tickets a year, right, for a normal person. You're not there like 3 times a day, like if you would be a news application, your CNN or whatever, right? So, but it's your user base. So when we look at, like the airline ticketing app, suppose, right? If the best recency and the best frequency is like 2 months, that becomes the 5. That scores 5. So you normalize it based on the app itself, and that's what we do, right? So for the news app, 3 times a day might be your 5 and 5 users, and it falls down, right? Like from there. And as your apps keep on increasing, it dynamically changes. Suddenly your times have become less. Now your old 5, which used to be 3 days, is now 3 hours, and that's awesome. But your users are still dynamically casted in what everyone else is doing, but it's very specific to your app.
And app marketers are going to have to understand that. That's very clear. I mean, let's say, for example, an app marketer in our audience is watching this and says, okay, so how do I best get the most out of your platform? I mean, how do I have to prepare my data first before I can even come to you? I don't just come to you and dump it. Is there some best practice around, the type of data, the collecting of the data? How clean does the data need to be? I mean, what could you suggest?
So, we have a whole, a customer success practice, if you will, right, around this. And we've really found that, right? I mean, people who onboard CleverTap especially, or any tool like us, I'm sure, like just to do basic analysis, we go through this data definitions, if you will, right? Like, and the key thing is like, what are the user actions that you want to record that are going to be important for your business? So again, if you're an e-commerce app, what people search for in our site. So searched is a user action you want to record, added to cart, purchased, things like that. If you are a dating site, right, you want to say, okay, where do you live? Like, have you uploaded a profile? Is the profile complete? Have you gone on a date? Things like that.
Okay, so like events and milestones.
It's basically
in the
events
journey.
and user actions. And then based on those events, all of the data flows. Now that's a click stream, usage stream for your users. And we have different endpoints, right? We have native SDKs that go into your mobile apps. We have, JavaScript that goes onto your websites, so you can unify. We have point of sale systems integrations through like a server-side API. So more quickly, I mean, the more in real time you can give this data to CleverTap, the more real time your engagement can be, basically.
I mean, for many app marketers, it's like, okay, I need to do this, but it's also heavy lifting, and I like to understand, for them to understand, okay, so why bother? So a typical uplift, maybe a customer case study or something. I mean, to understand that this really is, this is deeper in the funnel. It sounds a little vague because you can't maybe immediately monetize it, but it's investing in a more sustainable business. So it makes perfect sense.
It is.
What was the uplift?
Oh, it's massive. I mean, we're talking 25-30% uplifts, broadly speaking, right? Across.
That's the reason to do it.
In long term, like, when you look at, like, what are the metrics, right? I mean, you can be very sort of short-sighted, but like many people, I mean, you can look at results or uplift from a specific campaign, or you can look at results or uplift from a group of campaigns over 6 months. I mean, I've been doing stuff for 6 months, different things, right? Valentine's Day comes around, I do some offers, discounts, I do, and what has that impacted, right? Like, has your campaigns over a long period impacted retention, lifetime value, monetization, recency, frequency of users on an average, and that's what like we allow to see, and it's massive. I mean, if you are, it's very important to know and to not always do spammy things, right?
Yes,
like,
okay.
But who would not like the indication that your Uber is like 5 minutes away, right? I mean, you want that. Your flight gate has shifted from 73 to like 85, right? You want that coming to you. So if it's all about discounts and offers and things like that, you can get a little spammy, and that's not good territory to be in.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, that this is an extension, messaging is nothing but an extension of your brand. If you are useful, if you are relevant, even if you're recommending, I mean, if you're showing a video to view, right? I mean, if it's useful to me, I don't mind it. It's going to be fine.
Absolutely.
I might not watch it at that instant,
Yeah,
but I can bookmark it. I can do different things with it.
I've seen studies, Sunil, where you can believe it or not. I mean, they are real studies, and I was like, yes, I can see this, because some people feel slighted if they're not getting enough messaging.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
Because they say, well, I've given you enough data. You can be serving me.
That's the thing.
Why aren't you doing more?
Absolutely.
And even I've noticed a couple apps. It's like, well, if you haven't contacted me in this long,
that's the thing. Yeah.
What's going on here? So I mean, it's a trade-off in there.
It's a trade-off, and Peggy, that we do business sort of around the world, and it's also very regional. Like in Asia, where these are like mobile-first economies, they don't have the time almost to sit and browse, your app to find the data we need. The more you push them, they are actually happier. I mean, it's like what you're saying. And we've seen in countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, India, I mean, this is just like, this is part of life. Anything useful comes, they are kind of happy and they do it.
It saves some time, I can see it, saves some friction.
Save data network plans, data plans.
Exactly. Oh yeah, absolutely. So if we could just frankly, honestly, give app marketers currently, if we had a scorecard, we're at the beginning of a very interesting journey, because I've been doing this for a long time, and it was a long time before we even talked about retention. We were so in love with acquisition. So now we're even talking about, so that's great. Long way to go, but we're on our way. What would you give app marketers now as a scorecard? And
can I give them the honest?
Yeah, you can give them the honest one, Sunil. Yeah, I know where it would land.
Yeah. So I think I'll put it in two buckets. I think the effort is very high. I think the knowledge or impact right now is like maybe a 2 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10. It's just because, but everybody's working hard on it. We've just seen, like you're saying, right? So if I have to grade effort, I think I graded an 8 or a 9. I mean, that's pretty high. Everybody wants to solve this problem. But I'd say that the impact, because of lack of tools, because of lack of like sort of 360-degree view of the data, because of lack of real-time data, because of lack of context, messaging channels all being put together so that you can orchestrate, send the right message over email versus the right message with push and text and whatever.
Yeah.
So I think impact, there's a lot of room, and that's what excites me. I mean, that's why we honestly built CleverTap. So this is exciting times.
Well, it's about
we want to get that 2 to a 10.
And to your point, it's about orchestrating the channels too. I mean, the effort is there, the interest is there. Now you got to figure out that mix.
Exactly.
I'm excited also about the future of this, because you mentioned it too. And I can remember going to a recommendation engine conference when it was super cool, because that was something way out there.
Right.
Now it's a lot closer, and we don't need a proof of concept, because that's what Amazon was built on, and that's what Netflix does, right?
Job. Yes.
So we know this needs to be part of the mix. How should app marketers now be thinking about recommendation? Is this something that this is so far out, or should they be thinking this might even be a way to differentiate themselves? Because I think it's the way you're differentiating yourself at CleverTap as well.
It is a big part of, I think, what our at least immediate future is. I think for the next 12 months, we want to make recommendations dead simple and dead easy for marketers to use, right? And the problem's not the concept of recommendations. People get that, like you said, people know that. But the problem is like, it's when you create a campaign, you need the recommended value to be like right there in front of you. So again, we certainly, I think we are getting a lot of interest from our customers. We are actually really looking forward. We are like less than about 30, 45 days away from putting it in the hands of marketers, that it's just going to be like out of the box. It's going to be a good thing.
That's very interesting. So what do you see 2019 being for you at CleverTap? Is this like the year that you empower us all to be mini Amazons, or what's going on there in your own vision and roadmap?
So it's funny you mentioned that, because 5 years ago when we started, we had applied for like the, Y Combinator is probably still the biggest like cool incubator out there. And our tagline at that point in time, when we didn't have a product, we just started the building. We were three co-founders sitting in, in like not a garage, but in a friend's office conference room, building this out. And our tagline for Y Combinator's application, how you have to be very pithy. It's like Twitter, you got to like put your company tagline within 200 characters or whatever. And it was like Amazon and Yahoo like personalization for the rest of the world. When we didn't have a product, when we didn't have you can check the application, but this is what it said.
Okay.
And we are every day, 5 years plus now, we are really going down that promise. It's been our day one thing. So 2019 is really about, I think, a lot of exciting growth for us. I think we've now, people have heard about us, people have experience, people have seen, our customers do really, really well. Today, like we have 6, I want to say, apps with more than 100 million downloads. And,
that's
only like, and it's like, only Android reports number of downloads. So you can almost double that up if you add iOS to the pot, because iOS doesn't, Apple doesn't tell you number of downloads. So we're talking about like user bases of 250, 300 million, app users. You add, many of them have web businesses. So you add sort of users who are not yet on, using their apps and so on. So we are really doing this well at scale. We have some, wonderful customers, and they're teaching us all along the way. It's really 2019. I think it's our big growth year, I think, and it'll be a big adoption year for CleverTap across the world, and that's what we're looking forward to.
Well, growth matches, because we're at Mobile Growth Summit. Hope to see you again.
Absolutely.
Sunil, thanks so much for all your time here today.
Thank you very much, Peggy. Awesome to talk to you after a long time.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. And thank you for tuning in.